Okay, so we are back, and I am continuing to read Personal Finance for Dummies, second edition, a reference for the rest of us by Eric Tyson. This is the beginning of part one, chapter one. In this part, you see the basic concepts that underlie sensible management of personal finances. You also find out why you didn't know these concepts before now and whom to blame. Here you'll undergo a gentle financial physical exam to diagnose your current economic health. You may discover that you need help, so I try to steer you toward those who can truly assist you and away from those who may have something else in mind. Chapter 1: Potholes on the Road to Personal Financial Success. In this chapter, financial illiteracy and its causes, believing what you read, see, and hear, managing your very own personal finances. I've made just about every financial mistake there is to make. Lamented, one of the students in my personal finance course I teach for the University of California at Berkeley, the student who had an anxious yet depressed look seemed to be asking me for forgiveness. This is when it dawned on me that as a grown up, children, referred to as adults, were not really allowed to make mistakes. Consider that if you mangle your car in an accident because you weren't paying attention, or get fired from a job because of poor attendance and performance, you sure don't feel very good, and others around you are seldom encouraging. With financial matters, however, the fact that you've made a mistake may not be as obvious as twisted metal or a pink slip or no more paycheck. Some mistakes take months, years, even decades to manifest themselves. Even then, some people don't realize the foolishness of their ways. If you're a young if you are young, congratulations for being so forward thinking as to realize the immense value of investing now in your personal financial education. You'll reap the rewards for many decades to come. But even if you're not so young, you surely have many years to make the most of what money you currently have and will earn and may even inherit in the future. Throughout our journey, I hope to challenge and even change the way you think about money, about making important financial decisions, and heck, sometimes even about the meaning of life. No, I'm not a philosopher, but I do know that money, for better, but more often for worse, is connected to many other parts of our lives. Remember, few people like to be made to feel stupid or told that they're doing something wrong, and what you do with your money is a quite personal and confidential matter. I'm endeavored not to be paternalistic in this book, but to provide guidance and advice that is in your best interest. You don't have to take it all. Pick what works best for you and understand the pros and cons of your options. But from this day forward, please don't make the easily avoidable mistakes that I document in this chapter and throughout this book. What you don't know can hurt you. No, you're not a dummy. We're barely acquainted. But I do know that you're not dumb. Real dummies don't read and educate themselves, and real dummies don't understand the value of investing in their education. Real dummies also can't deflate their egos enough to admit that they need help and guidance. Here's what dumb is. Dumb is the man who walked into a Circle K convenience store, put a $20 bill on the counter, and asked for change. When the cashier opened the register, the man pulled a gun and demanded all the cash. The crook took the loot, $15, and fled, leaving his $20 bill on the counter. Or how about the criminal in Charleston, South Carolina, who robbed a person who lacked cash? The victim offered the assailant a check, which the assailant later attempted to cash at the bank, where, surprise, surprise, he was arrested. So you are most definitely not dumb. You may be financially illiterate. Sadly, most Americans don't know how to manage their personal finances because, in most cases, they were never taught how to do so. Nearly 100% of our high schools and colleges offer not a single course to teach us this vital, lifelong needed skill. For the handful of schools that do offer a course remotely related to a personal finance class, the class is typically an economics course and an elective at that. Archaic theory is being taught, and it doesn't do anything for the students as far as preparing them for the real world, says one high school principal that I know. Having taken more than my fair share of economics courses in college, I wholeheartedly agreed. Lucky people learn the financial keys to success at home and from knowledgeable friends. Others never learn or learn the hard way by making lots of costly mistakes. Lacking the proficiency in personal financial management causes not only tremendous anxiety but also serious problems. Consider the following sobering statistics. This is a warning. Approximately 1 million personal bankruptcies are filed in the United States annually. That's about 1 in every 100 households. So, in the next 10 years, nearly 1 in every 10 households in the United States, the most affluent country in the world, will file bankruptcy. Studies show that fewer than 20% of baby boomers are saving adequately for retirement, and 1/4 of adults between the ages of 35 and 54 have not even begun to save for retirement. 1 in 2 marriages ends in divorce. Studies show that financial disagreement is one of the leading causes of marital discord. In a survey conducted by Worth Magazine and the market research firm of Roper Starch, couples admitted to fighting about money more than anything else, more than 3 times more often than they fight about their sex lives. And a staggering 57% of those surveys agreed with the statement: in every marriage, money eventually becomes the most important concern. Fewer than 10% of American adults understand a 401k well enough to explain it to someone else. Fewer than 1 in 4 can explain what a municipal bond is. In a recent survey, Research Associates Investing Basics tests, approximately a third of those quizzed answered fewer than 50% of the questions correctly. These results are all the more stunning when you consider that all of the questions only offered 2 or 3 multiple choice answers as options. Nearly 80% of consumers do not know how the grace period works on a credit card. An even greater percentage don't understand that interest starts accumulating immediately for a new purchase on a credit card with outstanding debts. I didn't know that one. 53% of people in Money Vanguard multiple choice quiz did not know that total return was the best overall measure of a mutual fund's performance. The overall cost of personal financial illiteracy to our society are huge. The high rate of spending and low rate of saving in the United States lead to lower long-term economic growth and higher interest rates. Annually, billions of dollars are wasted through the purchase of inferior and inefficient financial products. Uh-oh, now I've really depressed you. You were probably feeling bad enough about your own financial situation, and here you are taking responsibility for the country's economic problems too. Teaching personal finance in schools. As part of her 5th grade math class, Nancy Donovan teaches personal finance as a way to illustrate how math can be used in the real world. Students choose a career, find jobs, and figure out what their taxes and take-home paychecks will be. They also have to rent apartments and figure out a monthly budget, says Donovan, adding, students like it and parents have commented to me how surprised they are with how much financial knowledge their kids can handle. Donovan also has her students invest $10,000 of play money and track the performance of their investments. To urge that our school teaches the basics of personal finance is just common sense. We should be teaching our children how to manage a household budget, about the importance of saving money for future goals, about the consequences of dangers of overspending. Unfortunately, fewer schools offer classes like Nancy Donovan's. In most cases, the financial basics aren't taught at all. Some people argue that it's the parents' job to teach the children the financial basics. However, this well meant sentiment is what we rely on now, and for all too many, it isn't working. In some families, financial illiteracy is passed on from generation to generation. Some education professionals agree that schools should teach financial basics. If people aren't taught financial basics in school, where do they learn them? But others say that schools would have to cut something vital out of the curriculum. Giving due respect to school teachers who work hard and often don't earn the pay or respect of other professions, I believe that personal finance should, at a minimum, replace the least important subject that schools are teaching now. Of course, the hard part would be getting people to agree on the least important subject. We must recognize that education takes place in the home, on the streets, and in the school. Therefore, schools must bear some responsibility for teaching this very important life skill. And with more students holding down after school jobs, teaching money management know how through the school makes even more sense. Investigate. Lobby your schools. Make sure the financial basics are taught in schools at all levels. If you think you're powerless to change the situation, you're mistaken. Many changes to our education system have started at the grassroots level. Taking home money or talking money at home. I don't know where I got that from. I was fortunate that my parents taught and instilled in me the importance of personal financial management. Mom and dad taught me a lot of things that have been invaluable throughout my life. In fact, in certain areas, I learned more from my folks than from supposedly more well educated people with all sorts of fancy credentials after their names. Among the useful things my folks taught me were sound principles of earning, spending, and saving money. My parents had to know how to do these things because they were raising a family of three children on usually one modest income. They knew the importance of making the most of what you have and passing on that vital skill to the kids. Warning: in many families, however, money is a taboo subject. Parents don't level with their kids about the limitations, realities, and details of their budgets. Some parents I talk with believe that dealing with money is an adult issue that kids should be insulated from so that the kids can better enjoy being kids. Some studies have shown that parents today are more likely to talk with their children about having sex than about financial matters. And you know how comfortable parents feel when talking to their kids about sex, so you can imagine how few talk about money. In families, kids hear about money only when disagreements and financial crises bubble to the surface. Thus begins the harmful cycle of children having negative associations with money and financial management. In other cases, some parents with the best intentions do pass on their money management habits. Unfortunately, some of those habits are, of course, bad habits. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't listen to your parents. You know how well I listen to mine. But in personal finance, as in any other area, family advice can be problematic. Think about where your parents learned about money management and consider whether they had the time, energy, or inclination to research choices before making their decisions. For example, your parents may think that banks are the best places to invest money. Banks are not the best places to invest money. You can find where the better places are in part 3 of this book. In other cases, mom and dad have the right approach, but the kids go to the other extreme out of rebellion. For example, if your parents spent money carefully and thoughtfully, you may tend to do the opposite, such as buying yourself gifts the moment you get any extra money. Although you and I can't change what the educational system and your parents did or didn't teach you about personal finances, you have the ability to find out now what you need to know to manage your finances. And if you have children of your own, I'm sure you'll agree that kids are really amazing. Don't underestimate their potential or set them out into the world without the skills they need to be productive and happy adults. But buy them some good financial books when they head off to college or to their first jobs. Illiteracy and conflicts in publishing and advising. Okay, you're smart enough to realize that you're probably not a financial genius. So you set out to take control of your finances by reading or consulting a financial advisor. Because the pitfalls are so numerous and the challenges are so mighty in choosing an advisor, I devote all of Chapter 3 to the financial planning business and what you need to know to avoid being fooled. Reading is good. Reading is fundamental, but reading to learn about managing your money can be dangerous if you're a novice. Surprisingly, written misinformation can come from popular and seemingly reliable information sources. Won't gurus make me rich? One formerly best-selling personal finance book, Wealth Without Risk by Charles Givens, advises you to buy disability insurance only if you are in poor health or accident prone, putting aside the minor detail that no insurance company that's interested in making a profit would issue you a disability policy after you fall into poor health. How do you know when you'll be accident prone? Because health problems and auto accidents cause many disabilities. Unless you have a working crystal ball, you can't see them coming until it's too late. That same book also purports to describe how to send your kids to college free. A few months before your child begins college, you're supposed to buy a 4-bedroom property a few miles from campus. Then you're advised to rent out the house to students. The idea is that while your kid is completing a 4-year degree, the value of your rental property will appreciate dramatically because of the shortage of off campus housing in almost every college campus area. You realize, I'm sure, that college students will give your property the same love and attention that people give to rental cars. And on the financial side, a modestly priced property would need to roughly double in value over a 4-year period for this college financing scheme to work. This is about as common as triplets. Yes, it happens, but rarely. Furthermore, the risk strategy is more likely to cost you money than to pay for college. Many real estate markets drop in value over a 4-year time period, and if that were to happen, your already substantial college costs would be added to, not paid off. Then you need to factor in the hassles and expenses of locating, buying, and selling the property. Add another minor detail: how many parents paying tuition bills will also have piles of extra cash lying around available for the down payment on a property? And another warning: don't the media act as watchdogs? You may be asking how Charles Givens became so popular despite the obvious flaws in his advice. Thanks to his talent for working with the media and great self promotion through seminars. One of the problems of the mass media is that hucksters like Givens can get good coverage publicly. Many members of the media are also financially illiterate and they love a good story, so Givens got all sorts of free publicity, being quoted in the press and invited on a number of national programs such as The Today Show, Oprah, Donahue, and Larry King Live. Thousands of people went to seminars conducted by Givens partly because of the credibility Givens built through media appearances, as how as has now been well documented by some of those same media. Many unsuspecting investors were sold commission-laden products, including risky limited partnerships through his organization. One example is the widely publicized case of Helen Gishak, a 69-year-old retired secretary. She invested nearly two-thirds of her modest life saving in part in limited partnerships, which she said were described as probably the most conservative investments we know of. But some of her limited partnerships ended up in bankruptcy, and others lost much of their value. Helen Gisak appeared on the Donahue Show with John Allen, a former investment broker turned securities lawyer who helped her sue Gibbons' organization to get her money back. After a lengthy dialogue with Gizak and Allen, Phil Donahue asked Helen how a smart person like her could get sucked in like that. She replied, "He was on your show and Oprah. You gave him credibility. You gave him free advertising." Helen deserves praise for fighting back like she did, but it is unfortunate that she had to learn her lesson the hard way. Don't assume that someone with something to sell who is getting good press will take care of you. That guru could just be good at press relations and self promotion. Certainly, talk shows and the media at large can and do provide useful information on a variety of topics, but be aware that sometimes bad eggs turn up on them, and the bad eggs don't always smell up front. Don't financial media know what's going to happen next? Mm. Scores of widely read financial publications offer predictive advice and commentary about investment markets, but such commentary can often be wrong or misguided. For example, on October the 16th, 1987, just 3 days before the U.S. stock market crashed, one of the most widely read daily business papers had this to say about the prior day's stock market decline. But, quote, "But it is not yet time to pry the rubber seals out of the office window. On September the 22nd, it should be remembered the market had a record 75.1 day rise. The underlying economic news is mostly good, not bad." Mm. On the next trading day, Monday, October the 19th, the stock market plunged 508 points, nearly 23%. Although most financial publications shy away from making predictions, many love to quote predictions made by the expert. The monthly, weekly, and daily barrage of conflicting crystal ball visions causes many investors, perhaps even you, to be paralyzed and fearful. You can clearly see in part 3 of this book you don't need a working crystal ball or guru telling you when to buy and sell. The best investments for growth are not only easy to identify, but once bought are generally best held for the long haul. Don't writers know what they're writing about? Writers are people too. Some good, some bad, some full of hot tips, some full of hot air. During the 1980s, one of the most widely read personal finance magazines ran a piece that purported to tell you where to get safe high yields in addition to utility stocks and junk bonds. The article recommended real estate and oil and gas limited partnerships sold through brokers. Such LPs are not safe investments. Over the past decade, most people who bought these problematic investment vehicles lost huge portions of their money. Beware, just us at the circus oddity sale. Over recent years, I've done some work with different parts of the media, observe how and what the media follows and ignores. As anyone who followed the OJ trial knows, some members of the media love an unusual story. The financial media, when at its worst, is no different than the news media that fawned all over the OJ trial. The more bizarre and novel something is, the more attention it gets, never mind if it's good for the readers and the viewers. The financial guru Charles Given, the appeal was that people believe they could get rich without taking risk. Recent years have seen a flood of We Can Beat the Market investing books written by a 17-year-old high school student, an investment club, and others. One such book was written by a couple of Generation Xers who, despite failing at publishing a print newsletter, soared to fame by claiming that using the online world to research stocks, anybody can easily and with low risk make 25 to 35% per year. As you will see in part 3, such returns are unrealistic, but they play well with some of the media. Mm, mm, mm. Okay, we're almost finished with chapter 1. Another popular business magazine ran an article that touted life insurance as one of the best investments. The piece advocated the purchase of cash value insurance, which contains an investment account as well as life insurance protection. The article went on to claim that life insurance should be the first consideration in most responsible investment programs. As you see in parts 3 and part 4 of this book, this advice is wrong, riggedy wrong. For the vast majority of working people who need life insurance, they should buy term insurance, which is pure life insurance protection. Any number of investment options would make a better first consideration than buying cash value insurance, but you wouldn't have learned that from reading this article. More than a few writers and talk show hosts claim to be personal finance experts, but hardly ever address spending and debt issues. Instead, they focus almost exclusively on investments. For example, they make you feel like an undisciplined failure for not saving through your employer's retirement savings program to reduce your taxes when other considerations may also apply. Saving your employer's retirement program is all good and well, but the truth is, many people live paycheck to paycheck. So unless you first learn how to reduce spending and get out from under high cost consumer debt, the experts can talk until they're blue in the face about horrific investment strategies. If you don't have anything to invest in the first place, then they're not really helping you. There are good writers and smart writers at most financial publications, but there are also some people who would have been better off covering politics. Come to think of it, some of them do also cover politics, and therein lies the problem. You're getting financial advice from people who don't focus on the field, have little, if any, training in it, and no experience as a practitioner working with people like you. Don't book publishers exercise due diligence? Book publishers are businesses first, and like most businesses, their business practices vary. Some have a reputation for care and quality, some just want to push a product out the door with maximum hype and minimum effort. For instance, you may think that book publishers can check out an author before they sign him or her to write an entire book. You may be surprised to learn that some publishers don't do their homework. What most publishers care about first is how marketable an author is. Some authors are marketable because of their well earned reputation for sound advice. Others are marketable because of stellar promotional campaigns built on smoke and mirrors. Still others may have the potential for marketability if a publisher takes a chance on them. But most publishers like a sure thing. Okay, I'm going to stop right here because I've been reading about 30 minutes, and it's my goal for these videos to really only be no more than 20 minutes. So when we pick back up, we'll be just at the end of chapter 1 and working our way into chapter 2.